Hey everybody, Zach again, newtutorial.com, coming in making a video for you today. It's springtime. Easter is in about a week. A lot of you guys are celebrating your Passover and your days of unleavened bread right now. And this is a very, I think, opportune time to talk about something I mentioned in a previous video when I tried to equate some of the traditions of Easter with the church, most of the Christian church practices when it comes to Easter, and also those of springtime fertility worship, things like Carnival, Bacchanal. I equated Bacchus with Barcus, meaning son of Cush. I mean, I didn't do these things. Many academics and scholars way before me have made these connections, and so I pointed out some of those in that video, and I'll link that video in the description below and in a card above, so you can check that out and see what I'm talking about. But see, in that video, I made mention of a chart that I was working on, and it wasn't ready at the time, but I've been trying to heavily get that, been heavily working on it to get that done, so you guys can see it, you know, during the time of Easter before it gets too far out of our minds. Because really, when you look at this chart that I'm about to show you, there is no doubt anymore. And not only that, but there are so many scholars out there today that back up this chart and the information I have gleaned from them and their sources, and to prove that there is no way you can distance the practices of ancient peoples and their worship of fertility, springtime, childbirth, you know, so many things, and the things that you see today when it comes to springtime and fertility worship, and the practices that the Christian church has in it today when it, you know, like for Easter and bunny rabbits and eggs and all these things that they do, you know, sunrises. There's so many things that are tied together. You can't look at this and tell me that these goddesses are not related. They're not the same person. They are absolutely the same person. And so, without further ado, here's the chart. Similarities between fertility goddesses. So, okay, I'm coining the phrase Diffusionism mythology. And that states, it is my theory that all fertility goddesses share an extreme amount of similarities because they all originate from one original source who over time and migration during changes of culture and language morphed into different named entities. Now, where do I get this from? I get this from the terms comparative mythology, which means a comparative mythology is the comparison of myths from different cultures in an attempt to identify shared themes and characteristics. Comparative mythology has served a variety of academic purposes. And then diffusionism. Diffusion is defined as the spread of a cultural item from its place of origin to other places. Now, these are academic disciplines, okay, well defined. I'm not making any of this up. There are people out there who have come long before me, you know, scholars, people who have way more degrees than I do, okay, in their fields of study that equate these things as being the same. So it's not like I'm just making it up. Zach, oh, you're just making this up. No, I'm not. Remember that chart I showed you in that other video? It was the Noah chart. It was the flood chart. And this was put together, this chart right here, you see here, was put together originally by a guy named Brian Nelson in a book called The Deluge Story in Stone. The Deluge Story in Stone. It was written in 1931, and this figure, this chart you see right here, is all of the different cultures around the world, including their flood legends that they possess, and how closely they relate to the story of the Bible. Okay, and people have been using this chart now for generations to show a linkage between the story of the Bible and flood legends around the world, you know, from different people groups, different cultures. So there's no, I mean, I don't know, if you go out into evolutionary circles and atheistic circles, fine, they may debate this. But in biblical circles, this is heavily used and referenced right here, folks. This chart, heavily used and referenced to show a connection between flood legends of different people groups around the world and the similarities they each possess. Likewise, if you go to the chart that I have made here, this shows the incredible similarities between these different people groups, these different places around the globe, and their fertility goddesses and the attributes that each fertility goddess possesses. Take a look at just a few of these. Let's take a look at some of these here. You see, let's just take, for example, the big one, water. Okay, all of these listed, except for one, and the Chinese one, Domu, have a link to water, either in their birth or in, you know, some sort of, they live in water, or they have control over water, or the water that they have provides healing. They're all connected to water in some way. That's an amazing attribute that links them all together. Fertility and springtime, another big one. All but 3 on this chart are connected to fertility and springtime. Fertility and childbirth, all but 4 are connected to fertility and childbirth. Again, what I mentioned before, they're, most of these, except for 4 of them, are all without a t-shirt. They can't find a shirt. They're all bare-breasted. So many amazing similarities. Another one, Venus, or a celestial body of some sort, is a connection for each one of these goddesses. Down there at the bottom on that chart. Is that just a coincidence? What about sun and sunrises? Check out the sun and sunrises. How many of them have a linkage to sunrises? Now, here's the cool one, I think. You notice, oh, well, Zach, your connection to eggs, there's only 4 of them. Well, that's true, but look at the 4 that are linked. You have the Egyptian Isis, which is also the Roman Isis, because there's a Roman Isis as well. You have the Roman Venus, okay? And then you have the ancient Assyrian Atargates, okay? Ancient Assyrian goddess. Atargates, Isis, and Venus, all connected to an egg. Also, all connected to springtime fertility worship. And who is the only other one that's also connected to springtime fertility worship that has connection to an egg? It's Easter. Easter, the Germanic Easter Ostara, who, by the way, has been proven through some of my sourcing that I include on my website for the article that's included with this video, is connected, according to academics and scholars, to the Indo-European Hasus. Easter Hasus. Their connection, okay? And they're both connected to springtime fertility. And they're connected to the egg. Now, I know people out there like, there's no connection to eggs and Easter, and pagan fertility. You have to be a complete moron not to see this. I mean, that's just, you can't make it. And not only that, but you're disagreeing with so many scholars, professors at Harvard, professors who are top in their fields of academia. They all say this. They're all saying this. And I link them. Again, I'm putting an article that coincides with this video on my website. It's up there right now at newtutora.com. You can read my sourcing. You can read what I have found and go look it up for yourself and see that there are people out there who make the connections. This is not something I'm grabbing out of a hat. I'm not making it up. Okay, this is solid, scholarly, research that people have put together. And I know there's some people who disagree, but what I have found, most of the people who disagree with the connections between the practices in the Christian church and some of their springtime worship rites or ceremonies are people who are within the church, who are going to look bad if it's acknowledged that a lot of the things they do are linked to pagan fertility worship in the springtime. So, I mean, I've listed some of these in the past. Some of the people who are tied to the Church of England, who are tied to the Vatican, who are, because the Vatican is waking up to this. The Church of England has woken up to this big movement out there showcasing the linkages between fertility worship, sun worship, winter solstice worship, and spring equinox worship within the Christian church. And they're trying to distance themselves and establish an apologetics because they know that it's offensive to some people when they realize this, and they need to develop a defense for it. Because they're losing some people in the churches. They're leaving the churches for this. And that's what you see in most, the thousands that are coming out of the churches and looking at the Torah and looking at how people used to worship our Creator and realize that in the Bible, there are times when the Father is very angry at his people for worshiping him in the ways of the pagans. And what do many of us look around at ourselves when we're in these churches, me included, when we're worshiping him the way of the pagans? He says, learn not the way of the heathens. So many of us in Christianity have taken a look at some of the practices we have done and said, this stuff is not biblical. This stuff is not in the Bible. It's funny. A lot of these people who are quick to condemn me and pointing out some of the pagan rituals and connections to the church, they'll often condemn my findings as being poorly researched, but they'll admit to you that these things that the church does are not found in the Bible. Easter is not found in the Bible. Eggs are not found in the Bible. Christmas trees are not found in the Bible. Well, my friends, how did they get in the Christian church? Where did they come from? Isn't that worthy of study? To to learn where the lies came from that our fathers inherited, I think that's worthy of study. And that's why I'm pointing it out. And as much as some people fight me on this, it's just going to make me, defend it more, because it's so easy to defend. And not only that, but academia is on my side, because, and they have no game in this, no dog in this fight. They don't. Because most people in academia and most people in scholarly circles out there who are very learned professors, and these people are, most of them, acknowledged atheists, or they have no ties to the Christian church at all. All they're doing is looking at this objectively and saying, no, this is not, the church and eggs don't match. Springtime fertility. Yeah, it's something that's been worshipped for, because of agriculture for millennia. People wanted a good harvest. So what did they do? They worshiped their gods of fertility. It doesn't matter, how much you beat this dead horse. People are going to argue because it's their pride at stake. Their pride is at stake. They don't want to be wrong. When you look at a chart like this, it's so obvious, the connections. Here's what I'll leave you with. Check this out. Think of it this way. When you look at a chart like this, what is the statistical probability of so many varied fertility goddesses across the globe and time having so many similar traits? The statistical probability. What is it? 1 in 1,000? 1 in 1,000,000? 1 in 1,000,000,000? I'd love for somebody to figure that out, because there is no way. I think if some statistician came through and did the math on this, did the work on this, what is the probability of so many having so many links and ties? You can't look at it any other way. And it was really cool, because when I was researching this chart here, there's so many other goddesses I could put in this chart that I just didn't want to fit in there, because and they would fit so nicely with so many similar attributes, like goddesses of Japan. There was a goddess in Japan. There was a goddess in Ireland. There was a goddess in Poland. These ancient goddesses. I mean, there's so many I could have included that I didn't, just because I just wanted to, it was taking up too much space. I could go on there's hundreds of different fertility goddesses, and they all have the same links, or many of them. So to deny that there's no link between these things is just foolhardy. And the people who do so have egg on their face, like I said before in the other video. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. This chart is available for download. I'll put it on Facebook as well. But you can always go to newtutorial.com and search for Goddesses Chart, and that'll pull it up for sure. And I have a full PDF version download you can get from there that you can print off a printer, and it'll be, full res, 300 DPI, that anyone can download that. And feel free, if you see a correction in this chart that you need to make, or you want to add, have an addition to, send me an email. If I take a look at it, I'll try to make corrections on it. I'm also going to share this with a number of scholars that I communicated with, both in academia and otherwise in biblical circles, who are interested in this and totally agree with my findings, and they just wanted to see where I was on this, and so I'm going to send this out to a number of them, and so that people can share the information and learn from it, and because I learned a lot by doing all this research. It was a lot of research. I've included a lot of my sources on the article over at newtutorial.com on this, folks. Come out of her, my people. What did that mean? Come out of her, my people. If there are no ties in the Christian church with pagan rituals of fertility and spring worship, what in the world was he talking about? Come out of her, my people. Learn not the way of the heathen. It's obvious. All right, guys, we'll leave it at that. Go home, read your Bible. Thanks.